thank you very much for inviting me. I think most of you know that Nika probably the person that I know best here in Greenville, South Carolina, excuse me. I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina, so forgive me for that mistake. But Nika has done extraordinary work around diversity and inclusion here. And I really appreciate and spent some time with her in an event that she had as a judge. And it was amazing the professionalism in that room and just the time and energy that everyone had put in. So thank you, Nika. I really appreciate it. I want to introduce Kevin Kelly. Kevin, stand up. One of the few guys in the room, but he's my partner and came over from Atlanta to be with us today. Kevin heads the industrial practice for Diversified Search, so thank you for making the drive and joining us today. So, Dixon Hughes Goodman, my goodness. See, I know what a forensic litigation support and evaluation does. This is powerful, without a doubt. So I congratulate you, Catherine Goodman, because I know that that is serious business, and I really appreciate the kind of things that you must do every day. You should all take a moment and find out exactly what she does and what her company does. I think you'll find it very interesting. So, how many of you studied Greek mythology? Come on. Hello. Thank you, young folks. I appreciate it. Somebody still thinks about Greek mythology, because when you think about the name of this award, Athena, all right, so I love Greek mythology. And went back, I thought, well, let me remind myself, because there was something very special about Athena. What was it? What it was that she sprang, all right, so just a reminder, she was born from Zeus after he experienced an enormous headache, and Athena sprung fully grown and fully armored from his forehead. Now think about that, ladies. Think about it. I've always said Greek mythology can give you nightmares if you really think about Greek mythology. But Athena was my hero. She was a goddess of basically everything. So Judith showed the list of all the competencies that the Athena Award looks for in people. Let's talk about Miss Athena here. Wisdom, when you think about it, everything she is known for. Wisdom, courage, inspiration, civilization, law and justice, strategic warfare, mathematics, strength, strategy, arts, crafts, and skills. And did I mention rational thought? What are women best at? Rational thought. This woman, Athena, is my shero without a doubt. When I think about, so Dr. Prince, you set the tone for what I'm going to say, so thank you very much without even knowing what I was going to say. My life evolves around partnering with companies, both for-profit and nonprofit. I help to identify and assess leadership for their boards and for the C-suite. So today I want to share with you what are some of the conversations that I'm hearing in boardrooms and in the C-suite. And Kinsey mentioned that I serve on 2 corporate boards, and I've served on a number of others, but it's really interesting today how the conversation has shifted in the boardroom, because boards are now clearly holding the CEO and everyone else responsible for future leadership. And they're very serious about it. This is when you know people are serious. They make part of your compensation contingent upon your ability to do certain things. That's when you know somebody's serious. When people are talking about finding competencies and new leadership where people understand what it means to be disruptive in a constructive way. They talk about trailblazers. They talk about people that are inspirational. They talk about people being passionate, people that are great communicators, change agents. They talk about visionaries, people that understand the world from a global perspective, because the world has gotten really tiny. And then they talk about being strategic, and the big conversation is around diversity. When you get the word in the boardroom, when people are concerned about diversity from the top to the bottom and back up again, you know that there is progress being made. But yes, without a doubt, I'm clear there's still great progress still to be made. So let us have a conversation. And I want to present this as we think about inclusion, diversity. I want to think about it more as being a gift, the gift of acceptance, the gift that you, in fact, can give people, the gift of acceptance, and the role that mentoring, coaching, and sponsorship plays in the whole concept of the gift of acceptance. I've given a lot of thought to this. Throughout my career, I mean, that's what I do. That's what Kevin does. We're forever mentoring, coaching, giving people thought about how to do certain things. The title of our company, the name of our company, Diversified Search, says a lot about what we do every day. When I reflect on life and the people that have lifted me up, and I think each one of you could probably stand here and tell a story about someone in your life that lifted you up, that helped make you who you are today, that helped, in fact, bring you to this moment at this point in time. There's certain things that I'm going to say as a given. I'm going to presume. Maybe not the young folks that are in the room may not have this yet, but they will, which is that you have a long-term view, that you understand the financial acumen, you have the financial acumen to understand how your company makes money, for-profit or nonprofit, that you understand who your biggest shareholders are, meaning for-profit or nonprofit, and that you really understand what is going on today when you look at the stock market, when you look at all the ups and downs of what occurs every day. If you pick up a Wall Street Journal, or you pick up any paper, you realize the complex world that we live in. So I'm going to intermingle the concepts of mentorship, coaching, and sponsorship, because I think none of us, I don't care who you are, can have a great professional career without all three being present. So let me give us a common platform for thinking about mentors, coaching, and sponsorship. First of all, a good mentor, it's a person who's a sounding board. They can act as a formal or informal person to help give you guidance about what you're doing and where you're headed. I think everybody in this room has had a mentor in their life. And, you know, I would say at an early age, it was probably your teacher, your parents, other friends of the community who told you to do what's right and stay on the right path. Everybody has that person. In corporations, that's a more complex concept of what a mentor becomes. And then coaching, I mentioned coaching. That's where you need a specific help with something, i.e. public speaking. There's a specific need that you want to work on. And then sponsorship, where you have someone in a powerful position that is taking a vested interest in your success. To advance your career, again, all three are needed and must overlap. There are people that point out the cliffs to avoid, voices that you should listen to. Those are the ones early in your life that are really important, that lead you to be where you are, to making those decisions about where do you go to college, to making the decisions about what do you do after college, how do you form a career, how do you get to where you are. Let me tell you a few things about myself that you know, so that you know my perspective based on my own personal life experiences. I had a father that was strong as everything. My father could raise his eyebrow and be 2 miles away, and we would straighten up. Seriously. He taught us a couple of things, but among those, how to give a firm handshake and how to look a person in the eye when you talk to them. Now I'll tell you something, and I want you guys to hear this. There is nothing worse than when you shake hands with a woman, you do one of these little, ladies, do you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Is that offensive? Yes. Strong handshake, look people in the eye. Simple concept, right? Very important concept. I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina, as I said earlier, in a very segregated community at the time. I've been around for a while. Obviously, I have a daughter that's in her age group. I attended segregated schools. We had great teachers. We had teachers that had expectations for each and every person, and they were clear about it too. again, expectations. When we were probably sixth, seventh grade, I had two brothers. We had the greatest love-hate relationship. We still have a great love and hate relationship. Nothing like two brothers. You know, the middle child, I felt like, you know, wait a minute, they get everything. My parents uprooted us and took us to Indonesia. My father headed the School of Engineering in North Carolina A&T, and he was invited to go over and help start the school there in Jakarta, Indonesia. So they uprooted all of us, and we moved to Indonesia. What did we learn in that process? We learned that there is a big world out there. I learned that there were a lot of people that look like me, brown people, black people, that were in charge, that were presidents of countries. That was a major eye-opening experience coming from Greensboro, North Carolina, to realize that those limitations that I thought existed did not really have to be. With our first passport in hand, and believe me, I still have my passport. I have every passport I've ever had. I keep them. I think it's important. We were off to explore the world. We explored different languages. I told the group here, I learned I can read a menu in any language. I can't speak the language, but I can read the menu. Part of that is that Catholic education, learning Latin, I must admit. But this is good to be able to read a menu. So we learned we saw different languages, we experienced different cultures, ate a lot of different foods that I'd never dreamed of. We saw different religions. We met different people that wore different clothes. We went to places like Hong Kong and India and Great Britain and Italy and just to name a few, and Greece. Don't let me mention Greece as we get back to mythology. The key is we were forced to see the world in a bigger way, to really think about things in a way that when we came back to Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. People weren't thinking about, you know, something that's going on in all these various countries. And I found we were strange among friends, which was really complicated. But it did open our eyes to a bigger world. In high school, I had teachers that spent time teaching the concept of towering over mediocrity, which challenged us to be excellent. Mrs. Coley, who was our teacher, was real clear. You have to be your best or you're not going to succeed in this world today. I remember my Spelman College professors. They encouraged great debate. They encouraged being informed on all issues. They encouraged us to pick a side, but we had to defend that side. Why do I think this is right? We had to defend it. And then came the corporate world. Lord have mercy. Foreign animal. Totally foreign to me because I came from a different world. Father was a college professor, mother taught world history. I knew nothing about the corporate environment, but I applied for a management training program at what was then CNS Bank, which some of you, I don't know, there may be one or two people in here who know CNS Bank, but today it's Bank of America. So in the management training program there, they really demanded the best of everybody. And you figured out quite quickly the concept of studying hard, to being present, to knowing that, you know, if the meeting started at 7 a.m., you better be there in that chair at 7 a.m., ready to go. It was my first conscious thought of needing a mentor. And in that process, I think all young folks, everybody at every phase of your life, you need a mentor because different people teach you different things. And I think that is very true today. You need somebody who gives you that feedback about what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And I think some people don't think that a CEO, the chairman of the board in a company, gets that feedback. They do. They get it from their board that says, this is the path that we're thinking about. These are the things that are important. And I want you to know that that feedback, you have to be willing to accept the feedback. You also have to be willing to act on what you're hearing, to do what you're doing better. That becomes really important. I think it's important that you seek people that come from different backgrounds because we can all learn from each other. the whole concept of being in a bigger world. The key is building a trusting relationship, trusting. Sometimes I think, I know I've had times in my life when I think I've been very naive about things, where I trusted. But you really have to dig deep to understand what real trust is, and I think that's important for all of us. As you move along and move up the ranks, it's hard work. I know the young folks sitting here know, they play musical instruments. I hope all of you get a chance to meet this table here because there are fabulous young ladies sitting here. It is important that the concept of hard work, the concept of late evenings, the concept of, being willing to ask a question. You're sitting there thinking to yourself, this is a stupid question. And then somebody else asks it and you go, I should have asked that question. So, and then observing around you. We live in a very complex world today. It's always been complex. I think it's become more complex. Technology delivers everything immediately to you. But you've got to think about what's real and what's not real in this process. It is, I think the whole concept of shaping your own opinion is very important here. So, as you think about finding a mentor, understand what your short and long-term goals are. You have to define where you intend to go in your career. Some people are really thrilled at what they do, and they do it extraordinarily well right where they are. That is fine. Other people want to do other things. That is fine too. And if that is your goal, think about having a mentor to get you there. You think about finding someone, so a mentor is someone who's going to give you critical assessment. They're not going to be there to make you feel good. If your mentor makes you feel good every day, you need to move along. You need to give another mentor. I'm very serious about that. You want someone that forces you to be better. And in order to do that, you have to have somebody that's willing to give you clear, real assessment, not the feel-good stuff. They have to be committed to making you be better. And you have to be committed to making yourself better because ultimately it is absolutely your responsibility. I thoroughly believe mentors are fabulous, but I want to say to you clearly, sponsors are better, okay? Why? A sponsor will open the door for you. They're going to make sure you're at the table. If you're in a corporation, they're going to make sure that you're doing a presentation to the board of directors. That's what a sponsor will do for you. They're going to make sure that if there is a dinner that it would be really helpful for you to attend, that you're there, that you're at a table, that you're in the room, that you have the opportunity to meet other people that can help you grow. That is what a sponsor does for you. And that is a very powerful position. Be clear, most sponsors, they're not your peers. Most sponsors are people that are in higher roles than you are because they have the opportunity to open those doors. And I'm real clear that I've had some great sponsors in my life, some that I would even consider to be great friends today. They're the ones who help you understand, Veronica, you can't show up 5 minutes late and people think you're serious about something. You've got to be there 10 minutes earlier so that you're shaking hands and meeting people as they come in the door. If you have a presentation to do, and especially given all the technology and Google and all those other kinds of things, you need to know your subject inside out. All the information, all of the, what your shareholders are thinking if you're in a corporation, or if you're in a nonprofit, you need to know what your competitors are doing so that you too can be there with the same. I know a number of companies have created some very serious paths to sponsorship. Some companies have formal processes, others have more informal. There are people that will argue that formal works, there are people that will argue that informal works. The key is do it. It is really important. And for every woman in this room that somebody helped you, you have a clear obligation to help somebody else. Obligation. And for all the guys in this room, you do too. Everything I say applies to all of you too. I want you to know that. I don't want you to think I'm leaving you out of this because I'm not. However, most times guys are already there. Because if you look at corporate America, it's still, I think Judith gave the numbers, it's still, without a doubt, a preponderance of men. So that's just, it's a given, but it doesn't have to be, because I see people in this room that I have no doubt are moving up the ladder to take this on. I also want to mention the ability to listen. I find myself, I can do that really well. I'm thinking way over here when I need to be right here listening to what this person is telling me. I'm prejudging. I'm drawing a conclusion about what this person's going to say before they ever say it. And then if they go to a different direction, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. So listening is really important. Make sure you do that. I'm clear about how I got here. I'm clear about the boards that I sit on and my responsibility for opening the door. I chair the governance committee for one of the boards I'm on. It's so interesting to figure out. All you have to do is make sure you get out there and identify and bring to the table people that are truly competitive, that belong at that table right along with everybody else. That's a challenge for all. Nothing is given. The skills, the competencies, those are yours to own. Those are things that you have to take care of and make sure that you do well. I also want to mention ethics. Don't ever compromise your ethics. Anything you do today will be on Facebook tomorrow. And you know I'm telling the truth. I find some of the things that I see posted, I find amazing, just amazing. People, I think, you know, when the magazine is written 5 years ago, you have to think about, what do I want that magazine cover to say about me as a person? I consider myself a lifelong learner, and I want to encourage all of you to do the same. I did this program at Harvard where, this was like, what, 4 years ago? 4 years ago, where I went up and spent 2 years, full-time, case study, in classes right along with the students, lived in a dormitory. Who knew what went on in dormitories? It was all new to me, but boy, did I find out some things. I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, my mother would have taken me home if she had known all the stuff that went on in that dormitory. But the key is, in talking with some of the young folks, they would sit there and say, so, you know, they call me Mrs. Biggins, you know, what do you think about X, Y, Z? This young guy sat and had an absolute fabulous conversation with me. And then later, you know, he was going to do an interview, and then another woman was going to the same company. This was major interview. Each one talked about their life stories. And I said to them, when you walk in the room, they know you're smart. You're here at Harvard. Tell them your life story. Tell them something that makes you different, your life story. It's interesting. The guy who was brilliant went in, did not tell his life story. They did not offer him a job. The woman stuck with her life story, and when I say major, she has gone on to major things. But with the gentleman, I want to say this, he listened well. He came back, he said, I did it wrong, didn't I? I said, yes, you did. I said, you know, I'm going to encourage you to ask them if you can come back and do a different, just come back, just interview me again. And he did, and guess what? He got the job. Be true to yourself. Be true to your history. Be true to your life. I mean, you lived it, you own it, it has made you who you are today. So, I want to close with this. A couple of things I'm going to tell you. Be a lifelong learner. See, the students are sitting here going, oh, no, I'm trying to get out of school. Be a lifelong learner. Don't ever give it up. Take courses that expand your world. You know, today, and I'm sure at the University of South Carolina, you can go online. There are all kinds of courses to take. If you're not a financial expert, I guarantee you that you can take a course online to help you become one. If you don't understand, look, the Wall Street Journal, if you don't understand how to read the Wall Street Journal, do you know the Wall Street Journal has a course online that teaches you how to read the newspaper? and how to understand the finances that are in the paper, there's a resource for everything. I wanted to learn how to knit. But anyway, that's a different story. But the key is, I did look it up online, and there's several courses online about how to knit. Who knew? Who knew? It's all out there. But my point is, think about something you want to learn, to speak a foreign language. There's something out there that's free on the internet. So I'm going to encourage you to do that. I'm going to encourage you to travel. Get a passport and use it. Well, then people say, well, travel costs a lot of money. There was in the newspaper today, the Greenville paper, there was a article in there, $99, Paris. Hello? I guarantee you there's something you can give up and get there. Learning other cultures. One of the things that I love about coming here, just walking down the street, you see all the diversity of Greenville, which I think is spectacular. And I think that's partly because all the businesses that have moved here, that are brought in, all these people that are so fabulous, and getting to know them, I think is also important. I'm going to encourage you to read, and read some more. Read everything. Form your own opinion. Don't let somebody else shape your opinion. If I only watch different news stations on television, I'd go from jerking around, do I believe this? Do I believe that? What do I believe here? Read. I mentioned listening. I want to say that again. Please listen. Listen to what the person is telling you before you form an opinion. And then, I want to say it again. Once stated, it has a life of its own on social media. Just keep that in mind. It's there forever. Kinsey knows one of my favorite books is a book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I see some people shaking your head, you know this book. I think he has 4 points in there. You got to read the whole book. Some people only read the first 4 points, but if you only read that, that's good too, because I'm going to tell you what they are. Be impeccable with your word. Be impeccable. Because if you're not telling the truth, somebody knows it. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. How many times has something happened to you and you're sitting there, all grieved about it, only to find out that's actually not what the intent was or what was happening? Don't take it personally. Don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions. And last but not least, always do your best. Our best can change based on how you feel, based on where you are. But in that moment, always do your best. One of my mentors told me one day, always dress like you're going someplace. I remember that today. I ran to the airport with a sweatsuit on and ran into one of the board members. I went, oh, well, this is not good. Anyway. So we're going into a season of giving. So I want to encourage each and every one of you in here today to give the gift of acceptance. It's not easy. Accept people where they are. Accept people for who they are and be respectful. One of the best congressmen in Washington can walk down the corridors and call every janitor and maid by name and ask about their families. That's the kind of person you want to be. Be somebody that cares. Give everybody the gift of acceptance. Thank you. Thank you. So, we have open mic time. Open mic. And I'm going to tell y'all, be kind. But we have 2 mics on either side of the room. I look forward to, I'll answer the questions that I can answer, and then if I can't, I'm going to look to the rest of you to answer the question, okay? Who's first? Go ahead. Tell me your name.
I'll start. Jennifer Harrell with United Way. I don't have a question, but I just want to tell you the impact that you made on my life. I was a banker in the 90s in Atlanta and watched your career, and probably many people in this room aren't aware of how you paved the way for women like me. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. For those of you that are looking for something to do, United Way. I was on that United Way board in Atlanta for a long time. It's a great organization, and I have no doubt it's a great organization here too, always. Thank you again. Yes.
Hi. It's hard to be up in front of all these people.
Take a deep breath.
I'm Sydney Cook with the Idea Group in Peculiar, and we love that we've been able to sponsor and do the marketing for this event for so many years, and thank you so much for being here. My question is a little bit more personal. I love how Kinsey introduced you and talked about how she remembers you as mom. You know, you had all these really huge positions throughout your career, and then that's kind of how she's able to still relate to you. And so many of us in this room, I'm sure, are mothers. I have 2 small children myself, and so I'm just in that time of life where it's really hard to find a balance between wanting to focus on your career and be a professional woman, but then also be the best mom that you can also be at home. And so I'd just love to hear your take on how you manage to find that balance and then still have such an obviously close relationship with your daughter.
We have a close relationship, right? Yes, thank you very much. Got you. See you. So you know what? It's not easy. Nothing is easy. You know how a duck is like moving along the water and underneath the feet are pedaling really fast? There are times, so this is when I knew that I had just, when I finally decided I'm gonna have to give up something because I need a housekeeper. And I'll tell you, I had to give up a lot. Not food, but shoes, clothes. I mean, you determine what's important in your life. I know that sounds trite in a lot of ways, but you can't do everything. When my kids were small, and I'll tell you, I'm gonna give my husband A+ because he drove that carpool every day. We did divide responsibilities, and I cook because you don't ever want my husband's cooking. Ever. I was the first woman in the bank to get pregnant. Officer. This is officer, I want to be clear about that. So the women officers came to me and said, "You've given up your career?" And I said, I hadn't looked at it like that, but let me think about this a little bit longer. I was promoted to senior vice president when I was 8 months pregnant. And I have always given the bank A+ for standing up for that, because that was not something easy for them to do. It is, and I'm sure any woman in here will tell you, it is children, and it's hard. But in the same breath, on the back end, you come out and you go, oh my God, somehow we got here. They're okay. They didn't kill themselves. They managed to learn how to do certain things, have expectations and I do think teaching children life skills about, I actually do anticipate you're gonna put those toys up. I mean, in today's world, it's easier to do it yourself, right? But I know Kinsey knows I had expectations that, things would happen. And because, look, there are times when I took Kinsey to work with me when she was an infant. I stuck her right under the desk and had a meeting in my office. No, I am really serious about this. I am really serious. Everything was going fine until she had to go to the bathroom. She popped out and they were like, oh my God. So, but I think the key is, somehow it all works. And I don't think I'm giving full justice to your question. Anybody else want to add to this? I'm sure there are other people in here that have had to manage through children. Any men want to add to this?
I do think it's interesting you brought that up because I'm taking my 6-month-old to a board meeting this afternoon.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Take them there. Uh-oh. Be kind.
So I'm going to add, it's very true. I used to sleep under her desk. Any CEO of what was in CNS Bank to this day remembers the 3, 4, 5-year-old who slept underneath her desk and would pop up during those meetings. But what was important to me, and what I tell everyone, we used to always have family dinner. So my mom traveled
Every
a lot
day.
when I was growing up. Family dinner could be with my dad, my sister, a babysitter, friends, but I always had someone that I sat down with and had conversations about the world and what was going on. And, you know, although my mother would feel that she wasn't there sometimes, I never noticed it because I had someone to eat with. That was very important to me. So it's not those big life-changing moments that you think are shaping your children. It's the little moments that shape them. Family dinner is what I remember to this day. Family member is a tradition that I've started in my household. It's the little things. It's not the big things that your kids will remember in the long run.
That's a good point. There are times when I would fly home for dinner. Yeah. So I'll tell you another interesting story. This was one of my really cherished moments from having been at the White House was that I was the person from the White House that was responsible for greeting Nelson Mandela on his first trip to the United States. I was the person that was at Andrews Air Force Base, standing at the bottom of those steps when he came down those steps. I wept the entire time. I want to be clear about it. I had a whole script that I was supposed to be following. It went out the door. But that evening, I called home. I'm calling to say to Kenzie, who was at home because my older daughter was away at college, you know, let me tell you what I just did today. And what she said to me was, Mom, we need some dog food. There is no dog food. She's like, you know, listen to me, forget all that. You know? I'm like, where's your daddy? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Mac Cunningham-Saric. I'm a business owner in Spartanburg, but I'm here as a guest. I'm a technical advisor with the South Carolina Women's Rights and Empowerment Network, SCREN. And my question, I'm an avid reader, and you mentioned that, and so I just want to know what books you recommend to a crowd like this.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so many great books out there today. I'll tell you, this may sound strange. One of my favorite books, I mean, this is, you know, as you go back, The Poisonwood Bible. How many people in here read that book? I thought that book did more to tell us what we do when you go to countries. So this was a missionary group, and they go to Africa, and the people in the village said to them, we wouldn't build our house right there. They built it there anyway. Do you remember what happened? Does anybody that read the book remember what happened? They built it right on a termite, who then proceeded to tear that house right up immediately. It's interesting, again, the whole concept of listening. The whole concept of listening. I do read a lot of leadership books. And in fact, I have a whole list. If you talk to me afterwards, I can give you a lot of different things that I think you should consider reading. I would go back and read the 4 Agreements, the one that I mentioned. But read the book. Don't just read the 4 things at the front. Read the entire book, because it really, really tells you a lot about how to live your life in a good way. And I do think that's important. I love children's books. I know that sounds strange, but I have a whole collection. If a children's book come out and gets that, the Dewberry Award, buy children's books. They're really interesting. Think about all those children's books you read and what guidance they gave you. They have good things in those books. And then I love mystery stories, so that's a whole, good mystery. When you walk, we just recently moved, so in the process of moving, you got to get rid of some stuff. We had boxes of books that I'd bought in the airport, so we were distributing books all over the place. The homeless shelter was really pleased. Great books, yes.
Hi, I'm Andrea Connor from Athena.
Okay.
I had an interesting conversation with a young lady when I first came in, and she asked about a time where many times a man will apply for a position and there may be a list of criteria and they'll be like, got that, got that, got that. He may not quite have that, but women will tend to maybe say, I don't have that qualification, I have this one, I have that one. Have you ever had a time where you had that same experience, and how did you persevere to apply for the job?
If you don't have faith in yourself, who does? You've got to, and if you don't apply, how do you know what they're actually looking for? So I think, it's, we tend to think, well, if I can't check that box, then I'm not qualified for the whole thing. Versus, so I've got those four. I may not have this one. So let me put it forth and let me be clear about this. In fact, it's better to say this is an area that I know I need to learn, to be self-aware. I think that is important. You know, there are things that certainly, I mean, there are a number of things that I thought I should have gotten in my life that I didn't get. So anyway, I'm not telling you. But you know, it is part of growing, isn't it? If you've not been rejected for something, just like so in Atlanta, they have this Leadership Atlanta. Well, I figured I'd apply. I figured I'd get in. No, they didn't. I went straight to the CEO. I said, how could you not nominate me? Of course, he explained to me why not. I put my tail between my legs and got out of there. I thought, I got it. So next year I made it, so what the heck? So you learn. And if you don't ask, you're not going to learn. Yeah. Others.
Hi, thank you so much for your remarks. I'm Ann Warner, also with the Women's Rights and Empowerment Network. And I'd love to know, with the benefit of your experience over the years, what you think about the recent movement regarding Me Too in response to sexual harassment and assault in the workplace and in other public spaces, and if you feel like this is really a shift or a groundswell in terms of women responding and companies and other institutions responding to these accusations, and if it might represent a real shift in the way that we see women in the workforce and in public spaces.
I certainly hope it's a shift. It is so complicated, but it is real, is everything. And I think there are people that are going, well, all this Me Too and me that, it is real. It happens all the time. And I think we women have to stand up strong on this issue. Yeah, I'm one, don't stand and tell me the sex joke that you're thinking is good. I'm not interested in hearing it. We have to take ownership of this. And there are more women in this world than there are anyone else. We have to take ownership of this. And yes, I do think it's a shift. So, ladies, or men, what do you think? Somebody else. Real or not real? Yeah, very real. And I think that, isn't it interesting? It took a movie star to get people's attention. But sometimes you have to find a voice. It's like Martin Luther King was the voice when you think about civil rights. So sometimes you have to find the person that has the voice that can carry the message. But it's now up to us to keep that door open and not let that door close, because it is offensive and should never occur. I mean, think about the young women that are sitting here today. And I bet you if I went around this room and you were willing to be real, there's some stories to be told in here. Have no doubt. Yes.
Good afternoon.
Tell me your
Short.
name.
Lori Rovin, and I'm Executive Director at a Child's Haven, and I will absolutely affirm that it is real. I've worked in abuse and neglect for over 30 years, and it's sad that it's taken this long for more people to speak up. And so we do need to use our voice, men and women, because boys are abused as well.
That's right. That
And
is
they
so
are
true.
often forgotten. But I want to thank you for the words that you said in regards to mentoring, coaching, sponsorship, and because there's so many people in this community that have done that for me, and I would guess others. And I'm hoping, since many of those people are in this room, that I can be that same mentor, coach, or sponsor to someone else. And what you said about respecting yourself is so critical. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Jessie Siegel. I'm with Bright & Co. Advertising. And I have been fortunate enough to have mentors as well, but I was wondering what you would recommend for younger women or for women who are a little bit more established in their career in male-dominated fields. How do you find that mentor? How do you find someone, especially another woman who's gone through that trajectory, if they're not there in front of you?
Yeah. It's interesting because I must admit, all of my mentors were men. Because, if you think about it, that's who was in the job. So I didn't have that opportunity to have a lot of women. Now, it's totally different. And I think part of what you have to think about is, where am I trying to go? What's important to me? What's my career path? And then given that, who, as you look around, who would you reach out to? And I think I would just go and say to that person, I'd like to ask you if you would consider mentoring me. And let me tell you my goal, and this is why I think you are the perfect person and why I'm turning to you to be my mentor. But then it becomes your role to follow through. If I'm mentoring someone, I give them, come back to me with X, Y, Z. I'm not going to call you, you call me. I expect to hear back from you in 30 days or 40 days or whatever. And so that they have a job. I find out if they're serious about it. And it sounds like you would be because you're reaching out here. And so is this engineering, what is it? What is the?
I work in advertising, but when I was in the mortgage industry, there was one female executive in a 2,000-person company, and there were 5 female leaders in the whole 4,000-person company. So there wasn't any leadership that was seen at the corporate level at all.
Good. You know what? Set your plan. Identify what are the things that you would like to be mentored on, and then go and have a conversation with someone. And if the first person says no, go to someone else, because you want somebody who's really willing to do it. It's a job on both sides. Both sides have got to be willing to invest the time. Both. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're going to do it, right?
Yes.
You're going to send me a note and tell me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. You can get my information from Nika. She'll tell you.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm Lori Rose, and I own a company that's trying to change the world through healthy relationships. And originally my question was about ethics, and then when the Me Too campaign was brought up by Ren, my heart kind of jumped into my throat, and I felt compelled to stand up. But so it's complex. When I look at in my former life, I led an organization, and sometimes around me I would see people compromising their ethics, or maybe kind of flexing power, trying to bully or overpower me in some way that was unethical. And I had lost my voice back then. And I'm just wondering, it's complex because when we look at something like trauma, at least 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men at least, it's like our voices have been taken, our very being has been taken away at some point. And I'm just curious with regards to finding our voices, especially pertaining to something like ethics, what you might say to the former me when she didn't feel like she could speak up.
I think it's good to write down things in the moment. And then with that person say, let me tell you what I heard from you. And let me tell you how I felt about it. Of course, they're going to say, well, that's not how we meant it. But you said, this is how I felt about it. And I think that's really important. Even if they don't accept your feedback, you have to say to them. Now, then the other question becomes, is there someone in the company that would have responsibility for the whole, a lot of companies have ethics officers that are responsible for making sure of what happens in a corporation. If there's somebody that has that title, and also I would say in small companies, there may not be somebody that has a formal title, but a lot of times there's a person that is known to be the protector of the culture within a company. So if you find that person and see if you can have that conversation, I do think I'm one who believes if, from not only from a coaching perspective of if you could sit down with someone and say, let me tell you what I experienced, and let me tell you how I felt about it, and see what the feedback would be and how they could reach out and help you. I think you should consider that. Yeah.
Have you, in a professional environment, have you heard the advice to never talk about the way you feel?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it really well, though. I mean, just to be honest about it. So, you can decide, well, that's interesting, but no, I don't, I think don't let somebody silence you. Think about it. Don't do that. You have a voice. Just like you came and stood at that mic, you have a voice. You speak up for yourself. Empower yourself. Obviously you can do it. You did it quite well today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Yes. Oh, I'm over here.
Sure. Hello. My name is April Evans, and I'm here serving thanks to the opportunity given to me by Dr. Anika White. So I have an opportunity to see you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So notice that you are a double minority. You are a woman, and you're an African-American woman. Mm-hmm. So through some of my research, I found that African-American women have very unique barriers in corporate America. Could you please maybe share some of your experiences or how you overcome some of those barriers that maybe you faced?
Yeah, people can try to make women, in particular African-American women, invisible. You can say something at a table and nobody pays attention, and somebody else says the exact same thing, and they go, yeah. I'm like, well, hold up. Didn't I just say that? I'm sorry. Did I not say that? But your point is very right. There are times when I walk in a room, people don't judge me as a woman. They judge me as an African-American first woman. I'm very clear about that. But it also is something that I own, and I'm not going to let somebody make it a deterrent. And you have to own yourself. I think that's very important. Don't let somebody tell you who you are. I've seen it many times, where everybody else is invited but you're not, kind of thing. Find another party to go to.
Good afternoon. My name is Liz Seaman. I work for Furman University, and I'm also a member of Greenville County Council. I'm curious to hear about your experiences in the White House and maybe speak to the differences in leadership between the men and women that you encountered, and would also love for you to give an endorsement for the women here to consider running for office.
Oh, absolutely. Ladies, run. Hello? Seriously. Think about it. Athena. Do I need to go back through her things as she sprung straight from that man's head and went on to control the world? Think about it. I'm serious. Excuse me while I get my pen. The White House. Has anybody in here worked in the White House? Anybody? Because there are a number of people here in South Carolina. Billy Webster. How many of you know Billy Webster? Okay, Billy Webster was at the White House at the time that I was there. A number of other people that live here. Dr. Riley was there too, who headed the Department of Education, without a doubt. So, I headed personnel. That meant that I controlled everybody that either did or did not get a job in the White House. That was a good job to be in. It was a really good job to be in. Now, ultimately, it was the president's decision. I want to be clear about this. And a lot of other people that get involved, everything in Washington is vetted 1,000 times before it actually happens. If you see somebody, once they announce it, just know they've been through hell and hot water to be there. But it is, working in the White House is a humbling opportunity. Humbling. From the perspective that this country works extraordinarily well. When you look around the world, we can change government. We can elect new people. Nobody gets killed most of the time. There are, so there are fights that occur. We have the right to say, I can stand here and say what's on my mind. That's the beauty of living in the United States. Thank you. People don't, you need to remember the freedom of speech is really important. So if you look at, go back and read, our Constitution is a thing of beauty. But it is interesting, Kenzie and I were in South Africa, and they have basically a relatively new constitution after apartheid. Read their constitution. It is so inclusive. It's an amazing document to take a look at. But the key is government itself. When you look at the fact, when you turn your water on, do you fear whether or not it's safe or not? When you plug in something into a switch, do you fear whether or not you're going to be shocked or not? That's your government at work, believe it or not. Most people don't realize that. One of my best stories, besides having met Nelson Mandela, which was my best life story ever, they were looking to fill the position of the head of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. So we had some really interesting potential candidates. African-American woman, Shirley Jackson. If you don't know who Shirley Jackson is, look her name up. This is one powerful woman. So people said to me, she can't do that. I had everything I ever needed to know about her and everybody else that was under consideration, because I knew this woman could do that job. So her name went forward. Some people supported her, some people did not. She had to go to the Hill. She had to be vetted by Congress, approved by the Senate. By the time she got through all of that, she was made head of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. She went on to head the global Nuclear Regulatory Commission. You never know. Fabulous woman. Go read her life history if you want to get a sense of what people can do. But the bottom line, I love working in the White House. I chaired the Czech-Slovak Enterprise Development Fund for Lord knows how long, and helped bring, that was, country that, the Velvet Glove Revolution, you think about Yugoslavia, Slovakia, all complicated, all interesting, keeps you up at night when you think about those things. Anyway, thank you. Did I answer the question? Okay.
Thank you for being here. I'm also with the Women's Right Empowerment Network table. I'm Susan McClarty, and working a lot around mobility and housing as it relates to mobility. So my question, and I wanted to just throw out to the group, and I'd be interested in your comments on a particular book that my pastor shared with me called Our Kids, The American Dream in Crisis. Because in your lifetime, you've seen the changes going to segregated schools, and when mobility was at a much, we were doing a lot better with mobility than where we are today. We're at the biggest opportunity we've ever seen. And so as we think about our settlement patterns and how we've divided ourselves socioeconomically, our church is coming alongside a high school that's 100% poverty. And so when we think about the challenges and the reform, the welfare reform we've seen since when you were in the White House, I'd just be curious on your comments about how we might continue to make progress as we move forward. Because, and let me just, in Greenville County, as an example, we have 12,000 single moms with children who are living below the poverty line and not with adequate housing.
When you say mobility, define what you mean when you say it, so that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, there's a study that in that study is defined as moving from the lower 1/5 quintile to the upper 1/5 quintile in a lifetime, a child's lifetime, and we are one of the worst counties in the country for that statistic.
Yeah. And the statistics are pretty similar across the country, aren't they? Am I right?
Well, actually in the South, we're part of a study that's 5 cities in the South, so it is worse in the South, and if you look at places in the North, it's much better. But in terms of the housing dilemma, I don't think there's a city that's really tackled how to keep it affordable.
Affordable
correct.
housing.
And women are so often affected. which affects children.
So I'm going to see if there's someone else in the room who actually, I have opinions about a lot of things, but I'm not an authority. I can't put forth, like, I would do this. I know the church that we belong to is deeply involved in the issues of homelessness and the issue of, there's a guy living on the streets in Atlanta that I've known for 20 years, and he's still on the street. He goes to the library every day to stay warm or to stay cool in the summer, but he's still on the street. Been there. When you think about, in particular, children, and the shelters that close at 6 a.m. in the morning, because the churches want them out of the shelters so that they can put something else in there. I think, 6 a.m. in the morning to have an infant out on the street, there's just, I don't know. I mean, there's something as a country that we really need to think about. How do we address this? What is it that we really do? We keep putting policies into place, and none of them, my personal opinion, none of them are fixing anything. So let me I want to ask, does anybody have a body of knowledge on this that they can come and talk about this? Because or do you have thoughts about what changes could be made?
Well, I do. One example is just a housing first model. To put someone like the man you mentioned into housing actually saves communities significant dollars. We've done recent studies here and seen how much we could save by just simply housing our homeless individuals. And it can go up from there. But I guess I was interested in your kind of reflecting back about what existed in your immediate world, even in a segregated South, that may be a structure and a middle class families that were possibly around you and had more of a sense of community that we may not see as much today with concentrated poverty.
It's interesting. I grew up in pretty much a middle class environment when I look at, what my parents did. But my father's mother was a maid in Gastonia, North Carolina. Her husband was a janitor. And then you go back generations. It's interesting, and if you go back through generations on both sides of my family, there are mothers and fathers on both sides. Do I think that made a difference? I sure do. I think there's something to be said for, and I realize that all families can't have that. I got that. I understand it's very difficult. But you need both sides. There are generations that occur that are born and live in poverty that can't ever seem to escape. But we have policies in this country that make it almost impossible to move beyond all of those. It's just like if I get a job and if I make $5 an hour, then I've got to give up the support over here that has actually helped keep food on my table. You can't live on $5 an hour. You can't. No one can. They're just, it is. So Nika, that's a conversation that you need to get somebody in here who can really speak to this, because I think it's more than a couple of minutes. It is deep, it is complex, it is, there are a lot of people that think anybody black grew up in poverty. Not true. Not true. I can give you lots of examples that is not. So people make a lot of assumptions back to the 4 agreements. That is an assumption you should never make. That is a bad assumption. My grandmother sent 6 kids to college so it depends upon what you want to do. It depends upon what's important in your life. You can do things, just if you set your mind to it. So,
thank you. I know that was a complex question.
It is complicated, and I'm going to think about that all night. Thank you very much. I'm the one that wakes up in the middle of the night and goes, 3 a.m. Oh, yeah, I should have had an answer for that. So, thank you, though. Thank all of you. I've enjoyed being here with you. Thank you very much. Now, you have a question? Come on.
My name's Savannah. I'm here with the Unstuck Corporation. So we're a women-owned business. My mom owns the company. And I want to thank Nika White for having you here again. You've done a fabulous job. I just wanted to end on a lighter note, if that's
Thank
okay
you.
with everyone. What trait about yourself do you most admire, and what experiences helped develop that in you?
Well, you know what? I'd like to think that I live a life that's welcoming of all. I'd like to think that. I know there are times when, you run into something and you go, well, maybe I'm not so welcoming. But I would like to think that. And I think I would look back to my parents. I'd look back to, both my grandparents on both sides were real clear. You better be respectful of everybody. They were clear about it. They were clear about going to church on Sunday. Of course, now, I grew up a Catholic, so on Saturday, I'd go confess all my sins. On Sunday, I was good, and on Monday, I was back to being what I was all along. But I would say that I hope that I am welcoming of all, and I think it came from my family. I really do. So, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.